Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys my Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, Episode 5 review. Now, before I get started on that, um, since this is the first post video I'm really doing on any channel um, after Thanksgiving, I'll just say, hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. I certainly did. But I'm going to get right into this. I know, well, it really hasn't gone all that bad, but I know I kind of slacked off on getting this done, mainly because I've just been extremely busy, but I have like a few days to do this. Literally only like 6 days because it's going to be taken off the AMC website where I can watch it for free. So these next couple of days, I'll try to get finish season 4 of Fear the Walking Dead. Obviously, I'm going to start off with episode 5 since um, that's the last episode that I left off with. Now, obviously, I did watch this episode originally, but then I had to watch it again because it's been a couple of weeks since since I watched it. So that's exactly what happened. So I'm just gonna get right into this episode. Now, obviously, you can read the title of the video if you want to know the name of it, but I'm gonna say it anyways because I'm just that nice. It's called Laura. Obviously, this ties into John's wife. So obviously we knew it was going to be something based off her. And this episode came out on May 13th, 2018. Um, and after this, there's pretty much only 3 episodes left until the mid-season finale. But obviously, I'll be continuing to review it. It's not like I'll stop because I have all the episodes at my access. So yeah, let's just get right into this review pretty much. So, this episode pretty much was a love story, which I think is kind of weird because we had just started talking about love stories in my film and society class and the way it's formulated with the two people that are going to be lovers meeting each other for the first time, and then they don't really see eye to eye, and then eventually they start to come together. They consummate the marriage, and then they go through like this big change. Obviously, this wasn't like fully a love story because if this was probably a movie, there would have been more to this. But since this is just one episode, they still did the whole formula. But obviously, there's going to be more to this because the end of the episode does signify that. Maybe they won't be though. We don't know. But let's just start off with this episode. So pretty much what this episode was a flashback episode showing John and Laura or Naomi. I'm just gonna call her Laura in this episode since that's what she was referred to as the whole episode. How they met and kind of showing their relationship, which you could say that it's probably a skippable episode in that aspect, but I actually don't think that it is because this kind of gave the viewers kind of a mindset and gave us more information about John and Laura's character because we really haven't known really a whole lot about their characters. Maybe more so Laura, but we really didn't know a whole lot about John's character really since the first episode of the season. So I kind of like that they did this episode. It was pretty much a copycat episode of Morgan in season 6 when it showed him, finally get into Alexandria at the end of season 5. It was pretty much not the same exact episode, but it was kind of, it kind of took elements from that episode. And I kind of like that they did that. And I will go over everything in order, but I'm not going to go over everything in depthly because there's really no need to with some of this stuff. So I'll just kind of explain it. So the first 15 minutes pretty much is showing everything that goes on with John and them meeting. But I'll start off by talking about that. We find out that John keeps his in the opening episode. We find out that he keeps his guns in a box, and obviously there's a reason for that. And occasionally since he calls them Wanderers, I'll call them Wanderers, but you can call them whatever you want. The zombies um, wash up on his cabin here and there, and he goes and kills, executes them. And we also get to kind of see what John does throughout the day. He plays Scrabble, and if he can't think of one of the words, he'll spend all day doing his activities, and then he'll finally come up with the word. It was kind of nice. You got to see kind of what he does throughout the day. Every Tuesday, which obviously he has like a movie night, which is like my movie Monday reviews that I've slacked off with the past couple of months. Well, really past month because I've done it, but you get what I'm saying. Um, and later on in the night, he thinks he hears one of the wanderers wash up on the ocean, but when he goes over there, typically when you go to see a wanderer, they actually respond and try to scratch at you. But this wanderer, what we thought was a wanderer, was knocked out. So we obviously at this point knew that it was Laura. So um, and we find out that she's been injured. And I think with Laura, we actually didn't know. I don't think she actually knew where she was. I think she was just unconscious, but she was responsive. And we find out that she's been injured, but obviously it's not a bite, which we obviously knew that because we've met her, prior. We've met her after this situation happened, so we knew she wasn't gonna like die or anything. So, but he we find out she got a cut. We really don't know how she got there, what she was doing, which is really weird. They didn't show that, but um, he ends up fixing her cut, and, and then he comes back the next day and find out that she's ransacked his place trying to find the keys to his truck, and John comes out and tells her that the keys are on the dashboard. I don't think he called it a dashboard, but that's just what I'm going to call it. And she's about to drive away, but she's not in any condition, and the car doesn't start because the battery's dead. So John offers that if she wants to leave, he should wait till she's fully healthy and has food and supplies and things like that. So he stitches her injured wounds, and they find out a little bit about each other. He introduces himself, and you can see that John isn't so. It's not that they don't get along, but John is acting very awkward because he hasn't had any company in a while. They didn't really give like a time span, but he is he's not very sociable with her at the beginning, but tries to be, but he can't really find an interesting topic to talk about. And um, he and she doesn't introduce herself, but he calls her Laura. So we find out that's the name that he's given her. And he made a curtain to separate the two rooms, and she ends up going to sleep. In the middle of the night, she finds and I think he also found out that she was a nurse because no normal person would want to stick a needle into themselves unless they were a nurse. And we obviously knew that because she mentioned it in episode 2 of this season. And then she wakes up and sees that he's messing with his guns, and then the next day she wakes up and um, John's killing the Wanderers, and we find out that there's like some sort of opening that's causing the Wanderers to to go over there because it happens very often. And they go to a store which was named Big Al's, and we find out that Big Al closed the store after the apocalypse, which pretty much all stores closed, but he took off, and no one it's pretty much been abandoned for years other than himself going there. Um, and you can even see though that Laura really wouldn't let John really help her. Like he offers to go get her clothes and stuff, but she wants to do it herself, and he offers to give her boots, but she wants to stay in her shoes, things like that. And we get to find out they find out a little bit more about each other. Go into the store. They find out that you know Laura likes to keep things very organized because she's organized in the store in case people want to find stuff. And we find out that John likes to watch movies and signs that he's rented stuff out. And we see that he's the only one that's been there. Things like that, which I kind of liked. And um, when they go, when they're on the way to the store, I forgot to mention this. Um, John tells Laura that he was once a cop, and you know, she asks why he never uses his guns, and he says that they just cause more trouble than they're worth. And she asks if he liked being a cop, and he says at one time, which we obviously knew that he was a cop because he mentioned it in the last episode. Um, and then um, when they're leaving the store, they take like the top of the gas where you would go to fill up your gas and use it to patch up the wanderers, preventing them from getting out. And um, what I like about this is we know that John knows that Laura's gonna move on and leave at some point, but he's not really happy about it, but he doesn't really want to say anything about it. And during movie night, Laura and John come out and they watch the movie together. And Laura tells John that she lost her daughter during the zombie apocalypse. And um, I did like that little scene because I don't think we had known this before about Laura. We might have, and I just don't remember. But I like that scene. It was just a nice little touch. And then we get to see that they're starting to um, connect with each other. They're doing things together. John teaches Laura how to fish. They play Scrabble, and John helps her stitch up. And this is like when we find out that John doesn't want Laura to leave because she mentioned that she can move on fairly soon. She's going to stick around for a couple more days, and John's not very happy about this. And he hears like a wanderer wash up on sea, and the way that he would kill it was like he was like pissed off about it. So I like that. And they're going to deal with the problem with the opening of the gate where they fall off the bridge. Um, and they're just going to deal with it with melee weapons. But then John finds out that Laura took one of his guns. And John's unhappy about this because he doesn't usually like to use his guns. He says that they just cause more trouble. So they end up killing the Wanderers. They back a truck over the opening of the bridge to prevent the Wanderers from getting out. And one of the Wanderers tries to kill John, and he pretty much has to use a gun, but he refuses to, and Laura continuously tells him to. And he ends up not using his gun, but he almost gets killed. Um, and it's like he would rather, take the risk of getting killed than use his gun. So they talk about it later on back at his cabin, and we find out the reason that he doesn't like to use his gun is because he had a situation where he used to work after he came home from working at a country western show, which I've been to one of those before. That was pretty fun. Um, Somebody came in and tried to rob the restaurant, and he warned him to stop, but he wouldn't, and he ended up shooting him in the leg. But what ended up happening was he bled out and turned into a wanderer. So everybody thought that he was a hero, but he didn't think he was a hero. And that's why it haunts him. And he said the person wasn't a good person, but there was other ways that could have happened. And I kind of like this. This just gave us like a little bit of background info behind John. And it's kind of like, you know, both Laura and John kind of deal with the same things because Laura dealt with the same thing when she lost her daughter, and John just dealt with that. And it was something we didn't really know about John, so I thought it made him very relatable. So then what happens is, and we in the middle of the night, um, the Wanderers break through the opening of the bridge, and a ton of them just fall down, and a ton of them are about to like um, attack John, and Laurel and John go to attack them. One thing I liked about this was the Wanderers would fall down, and other Wanderers would use them as like a bridge when they would fall down. I thought that was really cool. And John sees that Laura's in trouble and about to be eaten by the Wanderers. So she ends up he finally uses his guns to save Laura. And he obviously wasn't happy about this, but he realized he didn't have a choice, pretty much. So later on in the night, and also Laura said that um, she was lucky to wash up on his cabin because he saved her life. But John won't even look at her at this point because he knows that she's leaving, and she's wondering why she won't. And John confesses his love for Laura, saying that I didn't want, and says that he didn't want to know that he loved her because she's gonna leave, and he didn't want it to be real. And pretty much he says that if you're alive, the world feels at peace. So he doesn't want her to leave. Um, he either wants her to stay, or they both stay. But they end up kissing. John wakes up the next day and sees written in the Scrabble pieces that she loves him too, and says, "I'm sorry for leaving." Now, obviously, this makes sense because um, Luciana and John had the same conversation that when she left Nick, um, she did it for the same reason, and obviously this fit with Laura. And then it cuts back to like the present. We find out that John's pretty much been telling Morgan this whole story, and John says that maybe he should have waited a little longer to say something, and Morgan pretty much says that you don't really wait in this world, you don't get second chances. And what I liked about this scene was in the beginning of the season, Morgan was having the same type of struggles as John just was at the moment. And pretty much Rick had given him some advice that saying that Morgan was a part of the world and people are connected. So I kind of like this because Morgan was pretty much giving John the same advice. Um, but Morgan's upset because Alicia, Luciano, and Strand all think that what's left is war and killing, but there's got to be more to this. And John is like, well, maybe they're right. And Morgan gets upset about this and says, if you believe that, we can go our separate ways right now. And John doesn't believe that, and says that he wished he had a second chance to make things right with um, Laura. And Morgan says maybe there is a second chance. And then he puts her gun in his satchel, and the episode pretty much ends. They leave, and we're kind of left wondering what's going to happen next. But I actually really liked this episode. I thought it was some really good characters that came together, and I liked the whole story they told throughout. Liked that we actually got to see John and Laura get together, and I did like the end when Morgan was pretty much kind of realizing about what Rick was saying all along in the beginning of the season. Pretty much is what him becoming in realization with it. It's kind of like having John, hearing this story from John kind of helped Morgan in a way too. So I like that. Um, and obviously, we're left wondering what's going to happen now. Is this a skippable episode? Probably. Like, probably if you didn't watch this episode, you probably wouldn't really miss anything. But I would definitely recommend it because I think it's really good. So if I had to rate this episode, I'll give it a B. It's a real good episode. Definitely would recommend it. And pretty much people agree with me. It's critically acclaimed and Rotten Tomatoes. And everybody at IMDb gave it an 8 out of 10. Um, and pretty much everyone said the same stuff that I was saying. Like, there's only one person that really doesn't like this episode. But the most that he writes is, um, you know, it keeps getting worse. This needs to end before it ruins all zombie shows. So he didn't really give like an explanation of why this episode sucks. So, but everybody else pretty much the lowest that it would get was like a 6. So overall, it gets pretty good reviews. But that's pretty much the end of this review. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to try to get all of the Fear the Walking Dead episodes up for Season 4 by the end of the weekend, and pretty much the end of the video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure you guys like, comment, and share this video so people will watch it. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content and click on the bell, so that way every time I upload a video, you guys get the notifications for it. And make sure you guys do the same thing for my CM Brothers YouTube channel. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.